So thanks for joining us as we start back up. Hopefully a few more people will trickle in as they come up from lunch. I'm John Stewart. This is my colleague, Keegan Long-Wheeler. And we're from the University of Oklahoma. And this project, we'll tell you a little bit about the backstory and the history of it in a few minutes. But first we wanted to start off with a discussion question, actually.
Which is also going to be paired with showcasing what the tool actually is and what it does. So we are, if you don't mind, in your browsers, it is B19 KeeganSLW.com. So KeeganSLW.com. So that is B19.
What'd you go with B?
You'll see.
Oh, okay.
And kind of what we wanted to do for this activity, because this is one of our favorite conferences, is just have a chance for reflection like inside of our session in addition to what we're going to be doing, because it's going to be very indicative of what students would be doing in their situation too. So let's showcase what it is that will be seen. So if you jump to that, here, I'll let you do it.
Yeah, if you go to that link, it should take you to a form that doesn't look like that. It looks like this. So hopefully you're all getting to a form that looks like this. Post to the Domains 19 Google CMS blog. You don't have to enter your real first name, last name if you don't want to, but we would encourage you to for reasons that you'll see in the future. But we wanted to ask you a question, just reflecting on your experience of the conference so far, all 3 hours of it. 4. What was the question that you settled on?
Well, I'm kind of curious because, I mean, we've already done one keynote and we've already been through a few sessions. What's something that stuck with you so far? Like, what's something that you either have tweeted or you've written down, or something that's, you know, caused a little bit of a stir? What's something that you're pondering even now coming into this session? We'll give just a minute or two for this.
And just in case it's not entirely obvious, I'll fill this out a little bit. You do need to pick your section. So section 1, just because we're going to pretend like we're all in the same section of a class. And you're answering assignment number 1, which I had labeled how would you do it differently. And then if you could upload a featured image, doesn't have to be anything important. You'll see in a minute that our examples are entirely unimportant that we were using. But then there's room for a featured image. So this would be the blog featured image for your blog post, title, and then the text of whatever you want to write down below. And if you'd be so kind as to not upload a 20 gigabyte TIFF, I'd appreciate it.
Oh, man.
I've only allocated 10 gigabytes for this presentation, so.
Hot dog.
Heck yes. I'm going to do an example too. Yep.
Are you familiar enough with the Microsoft Cloud to know if other clouds than Google could replicate what you're going to be walking us through today?
Yeah, so the back end is in Google Sheets, and so I'll show you how that works, and we can think about how the Microsoft piece works. The front end is just straight HTML and JS, so run on Azure if you want to. But yeah, the back end we can play with.
Google Cloud.
Yeah.
Maybe not even that.
Yeah, this is just straight off of the Drive account.
Okay, cool.
Shit, so I don't know if anybody else has gotten that far, but this is that link.
Oh, yeah, I might have put the wrong link in there. I'm sorry. On the next slide, it's gonna give you a link. We'll give you the different link in a second to go see the results. It's gonna point you at the directory that I was using up until about 6 hours ago, rather than the one that I'm using now. On a desktop below, there should be some images that you can pull from.
Desktop below.
Yeah.
Any of these.
Yeah.
Train. Have you done the
I've already
train?
used that. I haven't used the train yet.
Stupid train. Alright. Submit.
So when you click submit post, it might take a second since multiple of us are submitting right now. But it should eventually submit your image in your blog post and then take you to a submission successful screen. Unless we're clogging up the server more than I would give credit for. Once that happens, it would tell you to click on a link to take you to the website that we wanted to show you. But that link is, like I said, it's actually about 9 hours old. I was working on this at about 1 a.m. And changed the link without putting together all the pieces. So, Keegan, can you go back to the presentation? Do you have the link in there for the site we actually want to show? Or I can just pull it up.
Which, yes, it is. If you take that B19 and replace it with a W, it'll get you to the site. So w19.keeganslw.com is the short link. Or maybe...
So we got in at about 7 a.m. this morning, do layovers. So,
I think...
so we're, like I said, a little sleepy.
Alright, I'm going to have you come do it.
Yeah, click on that. So this is the full link. I'll see if I can...
Just D19 instead of whatever it was.
Yeah, did you have it as...
Yeah.
So here are the things coming in.
Yeah, so this is the live site. So this is what this is doing is it's taking your submissions, routing them through a Google Sheet, and then publishing them all here as live blog posts in a CMS that we created to run for these types of programs. So the original idea, and we'll try to figure out the link for you in just a second so it's easier to get to this than having to type in our long URL. But the original idea for this was I was helping a class, a Psychology 101 class at our school, Psychology 1113. And the class is the largest class at the University of Oklahoma. It has about 1,200 students every semester. And they wanted to do a blogging assignment. They wanted to write about 10 blog posts per student throughout the semester. So 1,200 students, 10 blog posts each, 12,000 posts over the course of the semester. And so we were running through the possibilities on how to do that with them. And if we gave each of the 1,200 students their own cPanel, as we would normally do in our domains projects, we would need to dedicate an entire server just to that class, which seemed expensive. We could have set up a multi-site, but that wasn't quite what I was going for either, and it would have required a bit of figuring out how we wanted to configure the multi-site. It would have been a decent amount of work to do with them. And so what we did instead was we tried to figure out what it is that they really wanted to do. They just wanted their students to be reacting to prompts that the teacher gave them, blogging very quickly without worrying too much about the blogging technology, and being able to see the blog responses of their classmates. And so we built this sort of custom system for them that has a Google Sheets backend to capture all of the posts, and then a fairly lightweight HTML and JS front end in order to present it back to the students. So it's Google Sheets backend and then sort of a headless push over through jQuery into HTML on the front end. And what we wanted to do here is to stand it up for you so that you can take away this sort of CMS, this free CMS that we built to do whatever you wanted to with. And then we wanted to have a bit of a discussion as to what you might want to do with it. And so my initial ideas were anytime you have 1,000, 1,500 students, which would represent most of K-12 education, you could stand up a blogging platform for them that's free. I mean, it's literally just running off of my Google Drive account, my free account, and not costing any space. And running off of GitHub in the case of today and what we're going to be showing you. You could run it off of Reclaim server, the front end off of Reclaim, with about 2 megabytes of space. Anyway, you can stand this up wherever you want to, and we're going to try to help you stand it up in about 10 minutes. just to show you that it's relatively easy. You then have to do a bit of customization to the HTML because I doubt you want to run my site on your project. But that shouldn't be too hard for most people in the room, or at least it's a starting point for discussion. So, any further thoughts on that stuff, Keegan?
I think one thing, too, about the custom CMS, really all that means is we took a theme from HTML5 that we liked, and we kind of stripped it apart. And really, that's all that starting point was for all of this. So starting from a pre-built website, and then starting from the Google backend as well.
Yeah, so this is just an HTML5 up. This is editorial, is what they call this one. And so this is all hosted in GitHub, and in that GitHub repository.
No, that one.
We wrote out the README to try to walk you through forking this. And so we wanted to see if we could help you to fork it and then get you to play with it and think a little bit about the affordances of it. And we wanted to try to, while you're building this, while you're playing with it, think about what it does in terms of ease of student blogging a little bit. It's not entirely hard to use WordPress, but there's a bit of a learning curve on it. What does it mean also that the entire backend is stored in Google Sheets, right? And so at the end of the semester, you copy the Google Sheet and you move that copy into wherever you want it as an archive of the student work. And then you wipe the Google Sheet and the entire site is emptied out and ready for next semester. So what does it mean to have an ephemeral site where all of the student work can be wiped at the end of the semester, where they don't have to worry about what they wrote at the end of the semester? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? What does that say about student ownership of the data? What does it say about faculty ownership of the data? What does it say about faculty ownership? They've got literally a spreadsheet of the student responses that could be data mined for text mining.
What does it say that we could do? Boot a new class in like 5 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah. A new class of, in our case, I think 48 sections. And that was the other thing, is that we integrated the 48 sections into the 48 sections in our Canvas LMS. And so they access the front end and the form through the LMS and never actually see that it is a website. For them, it's just embedded in Canvas as a page. And so, again, another affordance or weakness, depending on your view on LMSs. So anyway, like I said, if we can, I don't know, maybe we can just blow this up so that you can see the links.
Yeah, so the link to the GitHub is D19 for domains, .keeganslw.com. That'll jump you into the domain. And John mentioned forking, but you don't necessarily have to do it. You can just download all of the files yourself and then make any modifications and upload them into whichever web host or whatever system that you would need. It will also take you through copying the Google Sheet as well, because you'll have to have your own Google Sheet, and then you'll have to have your own HTML set of files here.
Yeah, when you get to the repository, the first, it's a 10-point instruction thing. We're going to sort of walk you through it. The first 6 are on forking, copying, whatever you want to call it, the Google Sheets themselves and setting them up. And then the last 4 are on standing up the website, the front end that you see everything on. So the first is to just click on this link, copy our Google Sheets. It'll take you to Google Sheets and ask you if you want to make a copy of our sheets. And you'll actually see the entries that you all just wrote when you copy those sheets. And so you'll have an actual copy of what we've been doing so far.
I'm going to do it too. Make a copy.
So this creates a new copy of the sheet for you, and you see the responses that just came in from the various participants in the room, starting with mine and Keegan's responses, which were about fire-breathing dragons and owls. And then you'll see that we were all in section 1. Again, in the course that I was helping with, we had something like 40 sections, but I simplified this down a bit just so that we could see everything on one sheet. And then a couple of you said this was assignment 2 versus assignment 1. The other thing that the sheet's doing that I'll mention here is that it's You can't, in a Google form, accept file submissions, or at least not easily. And Marty might tell me otherwise. But if you scroll all the way over to the right, the way that this is built is that it's not actually a Google form. It's an HTML form that looks like a Google form. And I built in a different kind of system for handling your file uploads. And so your file uploads, those image uploads, just go into images in my Google Drive and store all of the images in my Google Drive account. For my class of 1,200 students, that ended up being about 5 gigabytes of images over the course of the semester. And again, you could come up with, for whatever classes you're building, a plan on what to do with those images at the end of the semester. Presumably wipe them or archive them.
John, so just me, I'm getting you need permission to see the Google Sheet?
Saying we can't copy it.
That's interesting.
West access.
Were you able to get there? Did you get the same?
That's what I was
just
showing.
it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, was that you?
Share.
Yeah, go to the share at the top right.
Is that his full
That's
cover
his
now,
copy.
or is that the original?
This is a copy. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you go back to the original. So you were able to get it.
Copy that.
I did it.
That didn't know you're able to go through? Okay. Sorry. Yeah, we just need to change that side. Okay, so like I said, those URLs at the end, or the says URL, those are actually locators for the images that y'all uploaded, locators in my Google Drive folder. And so those plug into the end website and just load the images from the Google Drive folder. So once you're in here, go to Tools, and then Script Editor, and the sheet carries with it the scripts that are running all of this. And so when you load up Script Editor, you'll see the sort of back-end stuff, and this is parts of it are derived from Martin Hoxie's work, parts of it are derived from Tom Woodward's work, and then parts of it are mine. And so the first thing you need to do in here is from the Select Function dropdown, click Setup. And that will walk you through an authorization for all of this. And then once you've authorized it, you'll be running all of these scripts.
Yeah, I think I've already authorized it.
But if it run.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll give you a couple of warnings, just because this is not a Google approved set of scripts, I guess.
And where did the authentication, where did this piece come from?
This is Martin's. I think.
So it's kind of the Google official authentication flow.
Yeah, I got it off of your tags, I think.
Yeah, so because it isn't verified, I have to click down here on advance, and then they try to hide the link down here at the bottom. But then it'll go through, and you don't necessarily have to do this if you don't necessarily feel comfortable. Again, you can watch and see what we're doing at the moment.
So we're clicking on the Go to Form Captures?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that sets it all up. And then once it's authorized, then it's tying itself to your Google account. And so it's allowed to store images in your folders and all those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then once it's set up, you go to Publish, and Publish is web app,
Yeah.
and the form capture. Deploy is web app. And this link right here, the current web app URL, is where they'll put the form that we just filled in, where the actual form that people will be filling in. That's the link for that.
So copying that will take me here.
And so again, like I said, for our class, we just posted that into Canvas, so the students didn't need the URL. They were just seeing this as a page in Canvas. But you could hide it behind a redirect or whatever else you wanted to do. So that's now live. And then from the actual sheet itself, you go to File and Publish to the web. And this is making the sheet readable basically from the API service.
Does it have to be, does it have to be published to the web and available to anybody to see?
Yeah, I think so. That's the easiest way to do it.
There is security because by obscurity, it's quite hard to get to the URL.
Yeah.
But it's,
I
it
just
is.
know all the people are asking, you know,
Yeah,
they're gonna
yeah.
ask students
Yeah, yeah.
about that and all,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and right now we're not collecting, and we are collecting last names. And so that might be the one field that you'd want to obscure or delete or change it to aliases, depending on your user group. For our user groups for higher ed students, where we're not exposing any grades or anything else, I'm not worried about it. So anyway, this is now all published. You've set up the form for yourself. It's all good. The one thing that you will want to capture in here is the sheet ID, which fits in between this D and this edit up here. So that's the long string right there. That's the unique identifier for this particular Google Sheet, or for your particular copy of the Google Sheet. And we'll have to paste that into a couple lines of code on the web front-end side.
But we're almost done. Like
Yeah,
that
that's
was,
the first 6 steps.
that's the hard part.
That's the whole setting up sheets. The last 6 is about getting the files for the front end. And so like I said, either forking in GitHub, if you have a GitHub account, or just downloading the code. So if you don't have a GitHub account, you can just come up here to clone or download, and download a zip of it, and then take that zip into Reclaim, which presumably you do have, or wherever else you want, any other hosting service. This is a little bigger than it needs to be just because we've got some images in it. But the actual files running this are very small.
Yeah. The images and then also the presentation itself is in this repo. So like if you want to go back and see the slides that have the links in them and stuff too, they are also there. But if I take that and I expand it out, where's the...
So you can go into D19 is where the actual files for the website are. Again, domains 19. And if you go into response.html first, this is the individual blog post page. And what it's doing is that it's pulling from that Google Sheet and displaying one post at a time. And so we just need to replace the string in my Google Sheet with the string in your Google Sheet, which is down on line 81 or 82, somewhere in the 80s. Yeah, 81. So you just replace this string with yours for your particular sheet. You click save, and then that's done. If you're editing in the GitHub repository on the GitHub website, you can edit this individual file and paste over.
Yeah.
I use the GitHub desktop app, and so I can edit all the files on my own system and then re-upload, resync. But if you do go into this D19 folder, Keegan,
Yep.
and then you click on response.html, you can edit from within here if you are using GitHub. Go back out to that D19 folder. The other place that you need to overwrite the sheet ID is in assets.js. And it's this index.js file. And so there's one more link to the sheet in here. Here on line 33.
I'm going to do it in brackets since I'm already there.
So anyway, what we've done is we've given you a copy of the sheets that are the back end of everything. And then we've given you a copy of the files that run the website. And so now you have a form that's just an HTML form hosted by Google. It collects blog posts from your students, so a front-end blogging system for your students. Those blog posts are saved into a sheet, which you can then share. When the students decide which section they're in, we were all in section 1, but if there were 2 sections, or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, it would split out the responses over multiple sheets within that Google Sheet. is that what they call them? Multiple pages, multiple tabs, anyways, within that Google Sheet. And so it separates out the posts by class, by section. And then the front end site pulls off of that sheet for whichever section it is that you're looking for. And so again, in my case, we set up 32 or 48 or whatever at the same site over and over and over again. And the way that we did that is what Keegan's showing here with Canvas, is that you can, there's a tool that allows you to redirect to a website. And so we just plug in these URLs into the redirect tool.
And this is just bonus. This isn't I'm just showing it so you can see here. There's a full guide on that too if you want all of that process.
You can do this in D2O. You can do it in Blackboard as well. I assume you can do it in Moodle. I'm not quite sure about that.
So that would be what the students would see
Yeah.
at the end.
So again, the motivation for all of this was how do we have students blogging without ever having to actually have them set up a blog or do anything else? So we've given them a front-end interface where they can just write a blog post, and then we can embed the blog page in here as well, so they can just see all of the blog posts from the other students in their class. And then we can show them just the responses from their own section, or we can show them the responses from all sections at the same time. If we pull up, let me pull up the live full version of the site, just so you can see what it looks like when it's all said and done. So this is the home page for it. And if we go to the first, these are the various sections for one of the master sections. So if we go to Team Ainsworth, it takes a second to load in the couple of 100, 300, 400 posts that this particular group put together. But once it loads, we'll be able to see their posts. This is still running the old version. That's interesting. And so this is what an individual post looks like, as it loads up as what it would sort of look like in WordPress. And then we embedded discuss down here at the bottom so that they had commenting functionality on each other's posts. And the way that it does this is it just has a single HTML page that responds HTML that you already edited. And then it uses a parameter up here, post number, to pull off the particular row of the sheet that they're looking for. So in this case, post number 5, or post number whatever.
And was commenting part of the assignment workflow?
Yeah, so in this particular class, she wanted them to, I think it was literally post once, comment twice or something. A little bit old-fashioned, but...
and they just found other people's posts on their own?
So they would just, again, they would have the full display of the whole section in their canvas, and so they could just click on whatever posts and move over the comments they wanted to.
Because you know me, I see Google Sheets, I think randomizers, I could build a randomizer thing so that if you assign posts at random, that's what I do in my classes, it works great.
Yeah, exactly. So once you've got it in Sheets, you can sort of remix it however you want to. So, the idea behind all of this, again, was to show that you can set it up really easily. You can build something like this for 1,000 students in the course of, I don't know, like 20 minutes or whatever. And that it's just HTML and JS. And I think we get a little bit away from this. We rely a little bit on Drupal and WordPress to carry a lot of the weight for us. And while I love having a cPanel of one's own for all of the students, a lot of the times the students just want to respond to whatever the class prompts are. And they don't want to go through the cPanel and have to manage subdomains and subdirectories and all of the rest of it. If that's not part of the assignment, if it's just cognitive load for the students, then just give them a front-end blogging interface and let them write the responses. If the point of the class is not to teach them the web stuff, which I always want to teach them, but if the point of the class is just to get the responses, then use an easy system to gather the responses.
Were you guys propagandizing for OU Create as part of the process?
A little bit. We do encourage them to think about, if you'd like blogging, to please go back in and come sign up for our blogs. We have 5,000 users in our domain system, about 6,000 websites. And so this is just one of those 6,000 websites. We have class blogs that have 300 students in them and are run in a more traditional way. We have classes of 20 or 100 students who each have their own blogs, and then we aggregate with RSS aggregators or feed WordPress or whatever back into one space. Pretty much any flavor of WordPress-based class we do. This was just one that seemed a little too big for WordPress. We want to have 1,200 students as users in a single blog. I thought that would clog things up and crash it if they were all posting on Friday night at assignment time. I didn't want to have an entire server that we were paying for one class. Site didn't want to pay for that, and I didn't want to pay for that. And so this was just something we made up as a way of getting around it. And it seemed to work pretty well. So, and again, I don't know, part of me is just amazed at what you can do with JS. So is that it's a bit clunky. My JS is a little bad, but the code's all there for you to play with. And we love to see you factor it, but we'd really like to see what questions this solves for you, or what questions it poses for you, what you think about assignments as being ephemeral, the idea that we can just wipe an entire class's assignments with one click at the end of the semester, or that we can archive them, or that we can host multiple classes if you wanted to. The only real size thing is that you've got a lot of images in your Google Drive folder at the end of the semester. So the second assignment that we had on our original form was, what does this offer you? What are the affordances? What are the limitations? Why might you use it? Why might you not? But we were just wanting to gather some of the responses, gather some of y'all's thoughts, either on the forum or just in discussion. So I'm happy to answer technical questions, but I'm more interested in some of the ethicals, the affordances, the limitations, those kinds of things.
Where's the best way to get the detailed instructions?
The repository itself has this sort of 10-point thing. Yeah. If that's not enough, I'll rewrite it a little bit to put in 2 links to blog posts I've already written that sort of spell a lot of this out. I also did a podcast with Tim and Jim where we talked a little bit about it. But yeah, if you've got technical questions, let me know and I'll point you in the right direction.
And the link to presentation materials will be in the schedule. So we'll be adding the links back in for everybody's as we get them for the presenters. Okay. So you'll be able to go back to the Domains conference site, go to this entry, and you'll see a whole archive of this presentation as well as links to the various things that were mentioned. So, yeah.
And I'll try to do a better job of documenting some of this that I worked together on.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one thing, too, is I was amazed how quickly John put this together. Like, being honest, this was a request that came over the summer, like a month before classes are going to launch. Yeah. And it was something that was, like, rapidly prototyped out and was also iterative during the semester, especially at the beginning of it, just to fulfill some of the desires of the instructor herself. So, like, even though this is a version 1 or 1.2 or whatever you want to call it now, like, it's something that was turned around relatively quickly.
Yeah, and
days, not weeks, right?
Yeah. And that was part of the reason that we wanted to do this was we didn't have time to set up a server, even if we did have the money for it. We definitely didn't have time to go find money and set up a server for the class. Some of the iterative stuff that we added in was that you can sort and filter by assignments, so you can just see all of the responses for assignment 6, or you can see all of the responses by a particular student. So that so the TAs can get to those pieces that they need more quickly.
That was going to be my next question. Did you do that? How did you do that? Of tags and categories, or?
Yeah, so it's all just off of these single sheets. If you look at the URL, well, it's obscured here because it's in Canvas, but this is still just that same index.html file, but it's looking at the parameters that we just passed it by clicking on that link. And then it's taking the student's name as a parameter, filtering through the sheet to just return that student's responses, and then presenting the sheet as if those are the responses or the assignment.
And is there a way, did you see a way for students putting in tags as they submit their assignment?
Yeah, you could. I need to, just update the form. So handling the tags is slightly tricky into a sheet, just commas and separating them out. Yeah. Totally doable. It's easy if you say 1 tag or 2, but any number of X to 0 to 10 is.
Had you have it for the assignments? So it comes from the LMS to be able to filter it?
Yeah, so for the assignments, if you go to the menu, if you expand out that menu, You can see what the assignments were. And it's pulling the list of assignments dynamically off of the sheet, off of their responses. So you don't tell the system what the assignments are, it pulls them off of the sheet. And so you do actually tell the form what the assignments are. So once you add it to the form, and a student responds to the form, it's added down to the database.
Did Janelle survey the students to get reactions from them?
The lack of filtering was a bit frustrating for them. I added that in after the fact as a response to their frustration there. Basically, for them, it was a big pool of 400 responses, and they had a hard time finding stuff. And so I noticed there was a result of being a rush job.
Was there a requirement that they interact with the stuff?
Yeah, they had to comment on each other's posts. And again, they're only seeing the other people in their section, so it's been scroll through a couple of pages and find a post of interest. But the other thing that they didn't like was I didn't chronologically sort. It was showing oldest to newest rather than newest to oldest. And so I've fixed that now.
2 questions. One is, could you build in a search feature? I assume you probably could do
You
something
could,
along
I just
those
haven't been
lines.
able to yet.
And then, I guess somewhat related to that, speaking of search, is this exposed or not because it's JavaScript? Like, I mean, do those posts ever show up in a Google search result or no because it's being pulled dynamically with an API?
That's a good question. I don't think they would show up in a Google search. I'd be surprised if they do.
It's more
Since
just that
your
index
URL
page
is in
being...
JS, someone could find it if they view the source.
Yeah.
They'd have to manually go find it, but the
Yeah.
sheet's
Yeah,
completely
you can
open.
get back to stuff by poking around in the code. I was trying to obscure that a little bit before the presentation, but just ran out of time. I was trying to use a YAML and pass the code ID for the sheet through that way.
And I'm thinking of it on the opposite end for the professor that wants their students' work to be public. You
Well,
know?
that was the other thing is for the students, they were primarily interacting with it through Canvas.
Right.
But we wanted it to be a live website also so that they could be sharing their information back with. Again, this is Psych 101, but a lot of these sort of early thoughts on how the brain works and how learning works are meant to be shared back with their parents. This is sort of exciting stuff and with their peers. And so the instructor's done a good job of thinking through her curriculum in terms of how she wants them to share stuff with the public audience.
And she's great at sharing. I know her from Twitter.
Yeah.
She's a fun person to follow. Twitter shares tons of resources about brain science and learning.
Yeah, and I hadn't worked with professors before whose entire job is handling giant classes, and this is really her job, is thinking about what is the pedagogy of teaching a class of 1,200 students. I'm a historian by training. My pedagogy is teach a class of 15 students, and so this is well out of my depth. And normally the term scaling is sort of anathema to a lot of us, but
I
this
mean,
is meant to answer a lot of those questions.
That kind of steered you and us into the direction of this too, in terms of, I mean, with the time constraints as well, but like trying to build something that was responsive to 1200 as HTML rather than WordPress to start. So,
Did you all ever consider just using the Canvas discussions?
For discussions,
yeah.
For that, you could write the blog posts in the discussions, but I think you'd have.
I guess
this
that's
isn't
my
super
question. What's
discoverable,
the
but it's-
difference?
So I'll make this comment. I know she's not excited about the Canvas discussions. I know she's using
Anything about
Packback now to do discussions instead of the Canvas discussions. So
Yeah, so part of it was just personal dislike of the discussions. We have a personal dislike of discussions.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I hate this thing. I don't want to use it.
Yeah. So this one was, and it did have an early request for the capability of being public facing and not private facing.
Gotcha.
This is internal. So, and Keegan and Janelle have both done a good bit of playing with what you can embed in Canvas, and so we're trying to leverage the LMS as much as we can to open up the web. And I think we're going to be presenting on that tomorrow.
Yeah, Canvas is a small part of it, but
Yeah.
it works other places can get with.
yeah. Well, and that's one of the students in her current courses complaints about the Packback thing is it's an external tool and it doesn't have an integration at the moment. So like that was one of the things that we needed. That was on our list of like this must happen. So.
Yeah, and in talking with, I think it's one of the challenges, at least it's one of my big challenges, is that students say, I don't particularly care what my blog looks like, I don't particularly care to worry about the theming of a WordPress site, or understand the logistics of a WordPress site, I just want to be able to post quickly in response to my class thing. And so, again, this is meant to make it as streamlined as possible. We've played with various forms of front-end blogging. I know this is really sort of the extreme version of it, where there is no back-end for the students to log into. It's just anybody could post to this, but again, as you said, security by obscurity, it'd be hard to get to this form by accident.
And so that's part of the idea with embedding it in Canvas, is that there's the front end, you log in to get there.
Yeah, you could easily distribute it bit.ly or something, but it would be slightly less distributed.
How much work do you think it would take for this to replace Piazza? It seems
I'm
pretty...
not familiar with Piazza.
So Piazza is like a Q&A platform. It's like, I don't know, shitty Stack Overflow, shitty forum. Look, I can say that as a presenter, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the way that you could post questions here and then gather
It's
response.
more about the response. Like more responses, less original posts, I guess. And so I feel like this could
Yeah, you might be able
get there
to,
a little bit.
and you could do something where you could allow the students to put in what are the questions. You could allow the students to alter that list of questions and then answer their own questions. And so you could go about it that way. Or again, you could use the discussion that we did to have them responding to each other off of their posts, or within their posts.
And that, did I hear you right? You use Discourse to handle that?
Yeah,
Or that was
discuss.
Discuss?
Yeah. Yeah, and that worked relatively well. Again, with the way that we're setting up the parameters and the few HTML pages.
Okay.
But this class in particular, and again, a lot of our classes, we use a lot of tools already. And so trying to minimize the number of tools. So Discuss was one tool too many, really, for a lot of the students. But, using flat files like this discussion is a little harder, or commenting is a little bit harder.
Since in Canvas you can't see the URLs, but they could right mouse click and open a post in a separate tab if they wanted to bookmark and actually get the URL.
Yeah, and you could also go through Discuss and then back. Using Discuss gathers all the comments for this entire domain into one big pool. And so you could swim through it to find other posts.
Because one of the things that's hard for me about putting stuff in Canvas, I'm glad that you can, but the fact that you can't see the URLs and can't bookmark things is a problem, and a lot of students don't realize it's easy to get around, but you have to tell them they can do it.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of difficulty with that also with some of the WordPress-based sites that are embedded in Canvas, is that to log into them and to be able to post to them, you need to go to the website rather than to Canvas. And that's not in any way obvious, it just has some sort of told to do.
Let's say a student wanted to get crazy and to do an audio recording or like podcast style response. Could they embed that in this?
I don't know.
Or just
Right now,
get a
the
microphone.
file upload is configured for images, but I don't know how flexible it would be taking audio files or video. I think you could accept those files. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to work a little bit on being able to
Even if,
display.
like, say they threw it up, somewhere else, say
Oh,
they
yeah.
threw it up on
Yeah.
maybe and they just wanted to embed it.
Yeah, within that text block, I think
should be able to embed it.
I think you could, link or that stuff.
You can use the Google embeds. If you set it to automatically publish, you can
That's true.
cheat that way.
It's going through quill.js, and so I don't know how much their weird markup. They use a thing called delta markup.
Yeah.
I don't know how much it would mess with any of the markup for the embeds, but I think it would probably.
So maybe a version 2 would be podcast acceptable too.
Yeah.
And I think you can get the image upload thing to upload whatever you want.
Yeah.
I think
It came
so.
from that Emit guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you could.
I didn't think you had to use that anymore.
Well, you talking about with a straight upload thing?
Yeah,
Right.
but then they would have been stuck
Using Google Form to do it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is, like I said, about 14 months ago that we built this, so it might have changed a little bit over that time.
And even with the Google form, I mean, we tried to. The one thing about their uploads is they require a Google account for upload. So we wanted to not have accounts at all be a requirement. So that kind of pushed us into this direction versus the traditional Google Forms. Because you could do this, you could do all of this way easier even if you required all your students to have a Google account.
I think the formatted text, I don't know that they would let you do that. Is there a field for that?
like to do the, you know?
I think that's, I mean, part of the reason I'm using Quill is because the Google Forms and even this form only had sort of long single line text
exactly.
boxes.
You couldn't bold, you couldn't do lists, you couldn't.
So that was,
Yeah.
I was wanting to get, sort of a tiny MCE text editor. This was as close as I could get to it.
And so from the student's point of view, they could click on their name in the list and be able to download, like as a single web page, all their blog posts if they want to save them.
Yeah. They'd certainly be able to access them. We didn't give them any access to the sheet, so they would be able to like directly pull them up.
Yeah.
Like when you click on someone's name, you get all their posts, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, only the faculty and the TAs had access to the sheet. Right. Yeah. So.
But yeah, now when you click on a student name, I mean, that was something that I built in over the last couple of days. Yesterday.
So what about you? On your end, like say a bunch of people wanted to do this. Sustainable for you? Too much hassle? How does it work?
Yeah, the sustainability question was the other big piece. So once we had set up these 30 or 40 or whatever it was, number of sections, and embedded them each in Canvas, and that's part of the reason that I love that like single wipe of the spreadsheet. And like for the faculty member, like, I don't have to do anything anymore. She can just run it. I can, occasionally go and tweak the code a bit, but it's very sustainable once built. It took me a while to figure it all out, but I think I could easily replicate this for any other faculty member, and would happily do so. It's the other functionalities if they wanted them. Playing with file type uploads, that would take me a little while, and then I'll have to think about whether or not it's worth it and what they're trying to do. I do still love giving a student a cPanel and having them actually learn the web stuff. Like that's my main job, is teaching them the web stuff. But in these types of classes where that's not part of the assignment, I'm fine relinquishing it. And so I do like front-end blogging a lot. And we will continue to play with different forms of front-end blogging, this one in particular. We've also we've been using Splots from Cogdog. We've been using versions of Splots that Keegan's built that give you that front-end blogging interface. But yeah, just various ways that we can get where students don't have to sign up for anything, and they can post.
I think one of the things too, at least one of the final things I'll say about this is I kind of like the elegance of like this is a GitHub page. So like when you do if you're in GitHub and you do the fork, you can just set it to be the GitHub page and then it loads from there. So even though it takes a few steps to do the connection between the sheet and the GitHub page, at the end of the day, all you have is that GitHub page in the current build here and the Google Sheet, and that's it. So you're piggybacking on two very large servers to handle tons and tons of info all the time.
Yeah. We didn't have to worry about, again, the crashing of having students hit it at our assignment time.
Yeah.
And we didn't have to worry about paying for it ourselves. Question?
Did you see GitHub just released the other day repository templates? That seems like it would be a good one for a template.
I hadn't seen that. We do have...
it was like 2 days ago.
Okay. We do have GitHub Education as a partner with them. And you can do some stuff with distributions through repos. And so I imagine it might be somewhat similar, but I haven't looked at the play with it yet. It's an interesting idea.
The other thing that might be worth exploring, and I did this on a very small scale, is, and I don't use this feature much in cPanel, but they have their site publisher, which was meant to be like a one-click, give me like a bio page or something, and it's nothing but a bunch of form fields. But then those fields become variables, and I played around with it with one that we have on Reclaim Hosting's GitHub that's using feed2JS. And so you put a URL into the form, and then it dynamically pulls in the post from that. So you could see perhaps like a site publisher template that says, give me the Google Sheet URL, and it creates the page for someone. They're choosing what domain it goes on, and it drops all the files in there for them. And so they're already, they didn't have to fork the code or anything. They still have to do all the authorization steps. Yeah. But in terms of getting it published, for a faculty member, getting that site published and online, that part would be a little bit easier maybe.
Yeah. And that was, for this presentation, we were trying to figure out how few steps we can get down to. 10 was still too many. But yeah, if we get it down to 3 or 4, again, something that people could do. And the problem with this is still going to be, though, that it's all HTML, and how many of the instructors are going to feel comfortable going in and, rewriting this for their class. And so I would anticipate that for these types of projects, I'm still going to do some hand-holding and sitting down with them.
But that's where if you have a template and you say, what's the title going to be, what's the description going to be, and all those, and then putting those things in, and then you drop those in there as opposed to having a hand
Even
code.
just, like a configuration sheet.
They don't get to change the theme,
somewhere,
but they do get to change
or
the
you can
text on
assign
there.
values out of there.
Right.
Dynamically. Because you can do that, I think, with the HTML templates. You can reference stuff in another sheet and you pull that in when you publish it as a web app.
And functionally, that's what this is doing a lot with the JS. And now you could just add another Google Sheet and do it in there also to replace whole text blocks. That would be way too much JS.
Anybody have any other questions or anything? Going once, going twice. Oh, cool. All right. Well.